Welcome back, guys. Got Unranked Podcast back again for another week. Got myself Grant here, and then we also have
Elijah, thanks for tuning back in. Just want to talk about a couple of subjects here, leading off with what we both kind of I think would agree is kind of a odd rule for the NFL to roll out, but we want to get our opinions out about the NFL taunting rule for the upcoming 2021 season. So we can kind of kick it off to what your thoughts are about it, seeing that we have a couple preseason weeks under our belt here with the rule being in place.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's it's just an interesting rule. I don't really know what the NFL's beef is when it comes to players just expressing themselves after they make a big play, score a touchdown or, convert a 3rd and 15, catch a pass over a couple DBs, catch a pass where they're being double covered, carry an entire defense 10 to 12 yards for a first down. We've seen an example of it already in the Indianapolis Colts and Carolina Panthers game where, I was watching it live, a running back literally, he carried no lie, 8, 9 guys, 8, 9, 10 yards for a first down. He's 4th string. He's trying to make a name for himself, got up, just kind of did a couple of these, flex. Nobody was really even nearby him, but the referee just came out of nowhere and threw the flag. I just think it's kind of crazy. And I think that one thing that the NFL don't really realize in this situation is that, I saw a tweet that, being a practice player, just trying to make the team, in that guy's situation, he's only making $5-6 grand, just to be in camp. And I saw that fine was $3,700.
Yeah.
So, this guy, he's trying to make the team, make a name for himself, play well, just express, some excitement after making a great play. And now you're going to take a half of a game check from them or half of a training camp check from them. And I just don't get it. They try to kind of dumb it down to where basically all you could do was score a touchdown and just, get the ball to the ref. And then they try to make it to where you could do team celebrations or try to cut down on guys leaving the ground. A couple, you get penalized if you're doing a backflip or, just kind of overdoing things. And I just really don't, understand what the problem is with it, because I feel I can see, if it's high school, middle school, okay, you kind of want to teach a little bit of sportsmanship at that type of level, but these are grown men. And how I always look at it is if you don't want somebody dancing, who you're playing against, then don't let him in the end zone. Don't let him make that big play. And I just kind of feel that's how it should be going forward. That's how it should always be. But what are your thoughts on it?
No, I agree with a lot of things you said. I think you should never try to interfere with a natural reaction. And a natural reaction is, especially when you make a good play, or is excitement. Is you're living for the moment. You're focused on that one task, and now you're going to show your excitement about it. It's not half the time, and a lot of these times, like you said, just a flex or a fist pump or whatever it may be. That is not necessarily, in my eyes, a taunt at all. That's a sign of gratification for this moment that just happened, or it's kind of you're not doing it to put the other people down as much as you are celebrating the success that you just had and showing fired up. These players aren't robots. These players aren't mindless. They are filled with adrenaline and filled with passion, and that's what makes them such great athletes and competitors in the first place.
Yeah.
So you won't be able to ever be able to referee that out or be able to get that out of the player system without the game tremendously suffering with players not having the passion. And there's a big difference between, as we stated, a flex or a fist pump or something to that effect, and pointing at a player after you do something. Or last year, I can't think of who it was, but they threw up the peace sign after they in the playoff. Yeah. So I think those type of things, I still think you should let them go, but also I could see maybe those are the ones you should entirely single out, where they are potentially trying to embarrass another player or put down a player. I still think that should be okay. But if you wanted to solely focus on those, I would have I'd have a different feeling about the rule versus you trying to, get the passion out of a player and get them to just be a mind. Oh, I got a first down. or I converted a 3rd and 15 at the end of the game. Let me put the ball down and run back to the huddle and not show any passion. The game's gonna suffer if players aren't able to play with the full, livelihood that they have.
Yeah, and like I mean, and you even kind of notice too, like sometimes, a team is kind of down, just don't really have that momentum on their side. And I mean, sometimes they just need to see their best player after making a big play. It's kind of like, I'm here, like point for a first down, or just, definitely like show that emotion. I mean, I think it's more, for me, it's more than just like taunting. I think it's literally like, it's a part of the game to where, I mean, this, like you talk about like, huge momentum shifts, between teams. Like I think it goes a lot deeper than, I can definitely see why they say that sometimes some of it can be like a little over the top, and it can maybe like cause things to escalate to where players start like, maybe trying to fight each other, or, some of it can just be like a little, maybe a little too disrespectful. But I'm more on the side of it just being something that's just like necessary. Like I said earlier, how I look at it is like, if you don't want people celebrating, you need to do whatever you need to do to keep them out the end zone, stop them from making big plays. And then I heard a guy, I think he's like, big wig for the Giants, just kind of saying like we're tired of the talking, and like, so what do you mean? Like it's sports. Like you got some athletes playing at the highest level possible for the sport of football. Like it's just competition. I just look at it as healthy competition, in a sense. So I think it's a stupid rule. I think what will happen is, a referee will go out there and throw a flag on a close game. It'll be a scenario where it'll be 20-20. It got, the score is 20-20. Guy makes a 25-yard catch to get a team in, field goal range, celebrates too hard. So that play automatically gets negated. And then, it'll have an impact on the game in a negative way. And then I feel like they'll definitely look at it and be like, okay, maybe we need to scale it back a little bit, because we don't want to have these types of rules affecting outcomes of games.
Yeah, and like they always do, they always overstep when they first roll out a rule. Whether it was the rules we generally agree with, the helmet to helmet stuff, but when it became with the first couple of years, it was every play that just looked aggressive. Yep. They were calling that type of thing, whether it was hitting the people in the shoulder, in the chest plate, wherever it have been. If they were getting rocked, it was getting called. Yep. So I think at first they always kind of completely overstep to say this is the law of the land. You cannot overstep this line here. And then, like you said, eventually they'll roll it back into somewhat more of maybe where it should be, or kind of back to life. Or that's just how they're tricking us into giving rules out here where they're entirely hammering in one way and then saying, oh, well, this is how it's really going to be after a couple seasons. Yeah. So, I agree.
Yeah, it's just a hope that they, just figure it out. Because I just look at it as like it's just a stupid way for like, some of those higher ups just to like still have their hand, in the game some way, somehow. I feel like there's just things that are needed. We need to see Cam Newton doing the Superman after he scores a touchdown and like giving the ball to fans. You know what I mean? We need to see the guys that make a huge play, letting the defense know they just made a big play in a big part of the game, that I feel like it just needs to kind of happen. I can't really see like football without it.
And how many, and what is the first, if I'm a receiver or a running back and I get a first down and I do the first down mark, is that an automatic taunting if they see it? If I'm a quarterback and I throw a 50-yard bomb and I throw up the touchdown symbol, is that an automatic taunting if they see it? And where are they going to stop it? And what's kind of generally the receiver being able to do the first down marker has always been able to be, since my earliest memories, I can picture T.O. doing, I can picture Randy Moss doing, that's a staple of what they do. So, are you gonna try to referee that out of the game entirety? It's bad for the game, in my opinion.
Right. And like I said, man, it's grown men. You know what I mean? Like, if they get their feelings hurt, they need to be played better. They need to prevent it from happening. Like, that's just kind of, my take on it. I can see if it's like, 8th grade, high school, you probably don't, I think at that point in time, you just kind of need kids to like learn how to play the game the correct way, But once it gets to like that college, NFL, where it gets like that, professional or like college and professional level, that's like a whole different ballgame. Not too many players are good enough to make it to that level. So I just feel like it needs. I mean, it's just a part of it. That's just really where I'm at with it. And but like you said, I feel like they'll week 2, week 3 they'll cost the team a game, and then it'll be like, oh, okay, they'll cost the Cowboys a game, and they're like, oh, we definitely need to scale it back a little bit, just because it might have just turned a touchdown into a field goal or took a team out of field goal range, and yeah, I mean, like I said, this game's at the highest level, and every point, every yard counts on most games. So we'll see in due time, though. But yeah, next transition we're gonna make is talking about Matt Stafford. I mean, he was, in my opinion, probably the third best Detroit Lion of all time. Definitely, saw him, have the team, the franchise on his back year in and year out. Obviously didn't see a ton of success while he was here. He did, help us get to the playoffs a few times, but everybody knows he made his transition, over to LA now. So yeah, I just want to, kind of ask you, like, what your thoughts are, as far as just like, his impact on Detroit. And, what do you kind of see him doing, in LA? Do you think it'll be, I think, like an automatic contender? Or do you think it'll kind of just be like, some people, is Stafford's bad luck? Is it going to just kind of chase them from Detroit to LA to where maybe they're not going to be as good as everybody thinks they are? Or what are your thoughts?
No, I'll go back to kind of like day one of Matthew Stafford when I was completely against them drafting him, and they gave him that huge deal. It was like $80 million, $81 million or something. And I just thought it was absurd because we were coming off such a bad track record. But I would say, I think it was that first year when he dislocated his shoulder, stayed in the game, and beat Cleveland. And I think from that moment on, he kind of showed the warrior spirit. He kind of showed just what he was made out of. Always playing through injuries, always playing when the line was beat up, when we didn't have a running game, when we had when we had Calvin Johnson out there, to when we had a pack of not so great receivers out there. He was always just a consistent guy for us. And I would say I don't understand a lot of the issues that Detroit fans had with him. I think sometimes it's easy to point the blame towards a person that's just consistently there, that he might be an issue, when in reality, he could have been the only reason where we weren't the bottom of the barrel completely. So I think we'll quickly realize that. And as far as his new life in LA, I think he's going to do great things. I think that team's already, a playoff team, already, contender, great defense. I'm excited to see what he can do out there. I'm excited to see him with a new cast of guys, with a new, just organization behind him. And I think he's going to go out there and do great things. I'm not guaranteeing a Super Bowl by no means, but I definitely see him come January in the playoffs, making plays and possibly with a game or two under his belt.
Yeah. Would you say that should number 9 be retired in Detroit? What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree. I probably would. I can't think of any other, that's the best quarterback that's ever played for us. Like you said, arguably top 3 all time on the team. And I think he's given a lot of his best years to us. When if he was on another team, he probably would have a few more, accolades as far as playoff wins and
maybe Super Bowl.
So I would say it's maybe nothing we should rush to do. But it probably would be the right and honorable thing to do down the line. As far as he was a great player for us, great quarterback, great leader, and kind of kept us together when we could have been a real shit show.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree. I want to just kind of piggyback off what you said about, like, you don't really understand why, like, people think that, like, he was just not good. I mean, it's a team game. He's been the only consistent piece, or was the only consistent piece of that entire team for like 12 years. Like, I mean, they've had 10 to 12 different running backs. They've drafted 2 different running backs that didn't pan out. They've drafted all the wide receivers that didn't pan out. Like, they only got it right one year, and that was with Calvin Johnson in the last like 15 to 18 years.
Yep.
Even defense, like coaching, never been great over there.
Yeah.
Discipline was always poor. Like he just was keeping. I mean, he was such a huge foundation, for the team as a whole. And I just think we're gonna severely miss him because major downgrade, with Jared Goff. Just from a talent perspective, he's not anybody. I mean, he was pretty successful in LA, but they had number one defense last year. Got Aaron Donald. That's somebody the Lions actually passed up on. Got Eric Ebron, if I'm not mistaken, instead of Aaron Donald a few years back. It just helps. You got to have a supporting cast in football. You got to have a supporting cast in any, in a lot of sports.
Back to the supporting cast. I mean, you might actually know the answer to this, but I know like the ballpark. We've only had like Matthew Stafford's only had like 300 or 400-yard rushers his entire time there. It was like Reggie Bush one year, and I couldn't even tell you who else did. Like he's only had like a handful of times. Mm-hmm. And what other quarterback can say that put up that amount of consistent yards? If you give the average quarterback, 55 yards out the backfield for their entire career, those numbers aren't going to look anywhere near like Matthew Stafford's.
Yeah, like teams were playing Detroit knowing that all they had to do was sit back and just make Stafford like beat them. Like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I think it was. I mean, they've only had one guy go over 1,000 yards, Reggie Bush. That was back in like 2012.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I mean,
but also like 100-yard rushers in a game.
Yeah.
I don't think we've had like a handful. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's I can't tell you the last time even that. Yeah, like a running back has even made an impact to where the defense was like, okay, we can't just come out in a dime package and just force Stafford to pick us apart. No, that's a great point as well. But yeah, I mean, I'm gonna miss him. I'm rooting for him. I hope that he's able to, take LA to the playoffs, get a win or two. Maybe mess around, maybe to the Super Bowl. Obviously, we know Tampa Bay, they're kind of team to beat in the NFC. A lot can happen between now and when the playoffs come. But yeah, we'll definitely. I'm almost to the point to where it's like, you might just be kind of checking the box score and not really taking the time on a Sunday to. It's going to be ugly this year. I mean, they're definitely going to be 3-14.
And just let me pile on to this one more thing. I heard it. I'd say outside of that, Matthew Stafford's a warrior, and we've seen him play beat the hell up.
Yep.
Whether that's shoulders, knees, hands,
broken
ribs, and he showed up and was slain.
Yeah.
I don't see Jared Goff doing that. I think you hit him in the mouth a couple times. He's sitting around at 1-6, 2-5, and getting beat up and the ribs are sore. He is not going to go out there the way Stafford wanted to go out there.
Right.
And I think he's going to take that nice paycheck and sit around and just ride that wave, and whoever our backup is can go in and handle it. And I think that's how I see it going. He's not going to show up and want to go out there and fight for your team and for your other teammates and your your fellow warriors the way Stafford did.
Yeah, whole different ball game too. Like you turn around, you got Todd Gurley in the backfield. you got a mastermind coach. I mean, McVay been there 4 or 5 years. He
got bite him on the ankle, dude. Now he's a whole different ball game.
Yeah, you got So got a coach talking about biting kneecaps and drinking 40 ounces of coffee and more. That's a whole different topic for another episode, though. I'm not a huge fan, at least what I've seen.
No.
I just kind of see I just get like middle school, high school vibes. Like he's just doing everything, like all that like showman type. Now
all that rah-rah shit only works if you actually win.
Right.
If not, it's a complete joke. It really is. Like if you go out there and you fucking 10-6, you could joke about two 40-ounce coffees in the morning. Yeah. You go out there and you're 1-15. You're a laughing stock. So that's what I'm getting out of it. It's like you said, it's middle school. Like it's fake tough man persona. It's, I can go out here and I'm just gonna yell, yell, yell. That's kind of what I get out of it. So I think we're in for a long ride.
Yeah, it's gonna be a long season for sure. But yeah, gonna kind of stay on the quarterback topic, but shift gears a little bit. I know one thing that just from a quarterback position, the evolution or how the positions evolved over the last few years, you're just starting to see a lot more black quarterbacks are starting to kind of make their way, onto the horizon. And we've seen them for quite a few years. I mean, some of the guys that kind of, paved the way, like Randall Cunningham, Don McNabb, Mike Vick, Aaron Brooks, Steve McNair. Those are just a couple guys to name. You can go farther back, you got Warren Moon. I mean, I think he was one of the first ones. He kind of had to go through, some struggles, some adversity to be able to prove that he could,
He wasted half his career in, I don't want to say wasted, but they forced him to go to Canadian football where he spent like his first prime of his career.
Yeah.
And he still came to NFL and made a splash and so.
And then, and I even saw a clip of like an interview with him to where he was saying that he ran a slower 40 time on purpose because he just didn't want to be put at receiver or running back. And it's kind of crazy because that, things like that still kind of happen today. You got a guy, I think his name is Bill Polian, used to be at the GM for the Colts, tried to call Lamar Jackson a wide receiver. And I just, it's hard to understand like why sometimes like, a black QB, just because they can run a little faster or their mechanics might not be all the way there, why they kind of get, sometimes they don't always get that fair shot, right away. But we are starting to kind of see some progress. So we got a lot of guys that can throw and run very well. So they're kind of like undeniable to be able to excel at the position. So yeah, like what are your kind of your thoughts on the evolution of the black quarterback and how often we're starting to see it more nowadays?
Yeah, I would say I think they've always been able to throw and run very well.
Yeah,
I think this for sure. One of my favorite quarterbacks of all time is Vince Young, and I would say I don't know how his career finished, but I know what counts as his real NFL career, not his little half a stint towards the back half, but he had a winning record when he left. When he started for the Tennessee Titans, and I would say they ran him out of the city.
Yep.
And they had him playing completely foreign to what he should be playing. They had him playing out of system. That'd be like if they try to have Lamar Jackson now playing in the same system as Tom Brady, or if they had Patrick Mahomes trying to play in old Peyton Manning type system. You're taking half of their skill set and bottling it up. And then you're wondering why they're suffering from passing games because it all flows together. So I would say they're beginning to allow them to play a little better, but as far as black quarterbacks, they're still the first ones to get scrutinized, whether it's Justin Fields this year or whether it was Deshaun Watson a couple of years ago, where he beat Alabama in a championship game. Everybody knows Alabama's toughest defense. He beat them in the championship game. He went to a championship before that and lost.
Yeah, lost like 5 games his whole career in college.
Yeah, and they took a guy who had probably 13 games under his belt.
Yeah,
and from a smaller non-football school in North Carolina. So I think they're always the first to still be scrutinized. It is definitely getting better, but that's coming from such the depths of where they were, where we were with it.
Yeah,
I'm excited to see it continue to go. I'm excited to see them break records, whether it's Lamar Jackson continuing to break some of Vic's records, whether that's Patrick Mahomes, look like he's on path to break a lot of the passing records.
Yeah.
I'm just excited to see, the evolution and kind of how it's all playing out in such a very short window. Vince Young was only 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And there was probably 2 or 3 black quarterbacks in the whole league then. So.
Yeah, and it's just crazy because it's like, I think one of the more interesting, like most recent ones to me was like we watched Cam Newton. He was in shotgun his whole career, like how Vince Young was as well, like in college. And, we just saw how much success like he had when doing that. And then it was kind of crazy because some of the analysts, these guys, they don't know what they're talking about half the time. But it's just crazy because they'll be like, okay, he was successful doing this. And obviously the game, it gets a little bit tougher here and there when you go from college to the NFL. But what was so wild to me was that they're out of nowhere. They're like, well, let's see what he can do, like, under center, like taking a snap under center. And I respected Carolina because he took some, but they made sure that they set him up for success. Yep. Like they made sure he was going to be in shotgun, back to where he'll be able to see more of the defense. Like they kind of like they helped him like just like with progressions and reads and like made him comfortable to where it was unfortunate. Like with Vince Young, he really just was. They were just like, well, if he can't go under center like comfortably, then he might not be the answer, and they try to kind of work in some of that shotgun stuff to kind of make him more comfortable, but they already kind of like just put him in a box because they were just so used to seeing everybody under center. Now you barely even see teams under center.
No way.
Everybody's coming out, they're just letting their quarterback stand 7-8 yards off the ball and just pick teams apart. Read option, like just opening up the defense or opening up the offense more and making it tougher on the defense to figure out what's going on. So it was always wild just kind of seeing like these quarterbacks just be so dominant in college, and then they got to go to the combine and like get under center and like, be put in these uncomfortable situations just to kind of like fit that mold that team kind of wanted them to. So
it wouldn't work in any other circumstance. No team would draft a running back that was known for speed and then try to make him run up the gut.
Right.
Nobody would draft the big running back and then say, we're going to try to always have you hit the edge.
Yep.
You draft a guy for their skill set and not try to say this. If you want a guy that's cookie cutter and that could play your role, then you have no reason to draft them in the first place. If you wanted, I think Jay Cutler was in that Vince Young draft. If you wanted a guy that's more traditional, then get him. You had no business drafting Vince Young or whoever the case may be, because you can name hundreds of, not hundreds, but tens of quarterbacks over the years that have been put in bad situations for various reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And also, just the evolution of it. Now, some of the Josh Allen's and players along those lines who are white quarterbacks are starting to be able to run a little bit more. Trevor Lawrence got a little bit of wheels. You've seen people spin out like Johnny Manziel.
Aaron Rodgers.
That's what I really wanted to talk about was Johnny Manziel. That same guy, same exact everything. DUIs, the money hanging out, the money hands, whatever, hanging out with the NBA players and
Drake,
drinking and Drake and all that stuff. He wouldn't have been drafted in the first round, but he was anyway.
Yeah.
And then they still let him go out there knowing that he had no chance. That was, that's really the kind of the epitome of it all. When you look at a guy like that, who would have, if he was black, he would have never been drafted or drafted severely later than first round, over just how he was viewed, how he acted, how he carried himself. Clearly not a leader. And also on top of that, he just didn't have the skill set. He just wasn't that talented. I don't think even if you gave him a great system, which they did kind of work with him, it wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
But that just shows you how less scrutinized they are of him or somebody like him than they are of, the average quarterback that, your Dak Prescott or somebody like that who went to the third round.
Yeah. And it's crazy because, it's, it's what's so wild to me is these players, they get punished for just like being winners almost. These quarterbacks, like Dak Prescott. He was at Mississippi State, was a Heisman contender until they ran into Bama, which happens to everybody. Beat LSU in Death Valley, run all over the place, throwing for all these yards, running for all these touchdowns, throwing for all these touchdowns. And it's like, fourth round. I wish I did more research to see who else got picked before him, but I'm pretty sure he's one of the only quarterbacks like he definitely the only quarterback, or Jared Goff.
It's in the Goff and Yep.
So that right there is like these guys went 1 and 2 and they don't even, Carson Wentz didn't even look like he knew what he was doing last year. Like Jared Goff had 1 year, got paid, and really they obviously were like, yeah, you're not getting the job done with all the talent around you. So we got to look elsewhere. And even watching like Russell Wilson, he one of my favorite players in the league. I love him. What he did was he got picked third round, came into preseason. The Seattle, they picked up a quarterback from Green Bay, Matt Flynn. Yeah. They signed him that year to be the starter, and Russell Wilson just straight up came in and just took over and never looked back since. won a championship, took him to the Super Bowl again. So it's always been so bizarre to me. Like you see that it's not like it's not like just taking a guess or just like a shot in the dark. I mean, we literally would see these players play so well and do so well at running and throwing, but then be like, well, they should maybe play a different position or, mechanics might be off or something like that.
And I forgot where he got drafted, but just to kind of loop this into another one, we both had Kellen Mond as one of our quarterbacks that we know are going to show out. That was like a 4th-round pick. I forgot exactly where he was, but he was later, like 3rd or 4th round.
Yeah.
He will be a starter and make a name for himself, period.
Already way more talented than Kirk Cousins. Yeah. Like, and they got about one more year of Kirk Cousins. I mean, what he's doing now is just ridiculous. Like he stole a couple of checks from Washington, got a big contract in Minnesota, and literally just been below average, since. And he only got a matter of time. But yeah, I mean, Kellen Mond, 4-year starter, played at Texas A&M, played in the SEC, put up crazy numbers. Like, and it's like, how do you, where's kind of like, sometimes that disconnect. You have that, but then you have like and even though Zach Wilson looked decent, but it was preseason, but then it's like you watch Kellen Mond in the SEC with a winning record over 4 years, but then like you see Zach Wilson at BYU never beat a Power 5 team, no touchdowns, like 10 interceptions against Power 5 teams. Like he literally struggled against like some of the better competition. But like, what are we kind of like? What's the comparison? Like, what are we looking at here? Because I don't know. I feel like Kellen Mond was, he deserved the right to at least be like a top 15, top 25 pick in my eyes.
I agree. And time will tell.
Yeah, and sometimes for the best too, because like, I mean, Zach, he's gonna be in a dumpster. He's literally in a dumpster fire. They're gonna be horrible for years.
I agree. It looks better as far as your accolades, and if you can come out and play, but where it really hurts is, what do you think they got paid the difference? $20-30 million? But Zach Wilson's grandkids are already good. Kellen Mond still got some work to do before his grandkids are good, and that's where it really turns around and screws people, that he's going to have to come out and prove himself, or many other players can come out and prove themselves when you give these players some early checks. So it's just crazy.
Yeah, no, and I also say too, I mean, even this year, for example, like, for some odd reason, like Mac Jones, he kind of just was able to jump in there. And it's like another kind of like contradicting like part of it is like we literally have watched quarterbacks from Bama like not do well. Jalen Hurts is doing fine. Two of my, those guys would be good, but they even, got like a little bit of extra, can run, get, what I'm saying? Like make plays, like off schedule plays, things along those lines. But then it's like, I mean, we've seen Mac Jones before. He's AJ McCarron. He was, McElroy. We've seen these types of guys that kind of come in and don't do very well. No, he's in a good spot. But then it was kind of crazy to me that they were able to just kind of be like, well, Justin Fields, like he has trouble reading defenses and, he, not very accurate all the time. But it's like, I mean, I feel like they're just both kind of like on that same level,
No, I second that.
So, and then, yeah, like Mac Jones, I mean, two DUIs were kept under the wraps up until like a week before, the draft. I mean, he dropped it a little bit, but it was, after Trey Lance went, it was kind of like, all right, like it kind of obviously depends on like what team needs are and such like that too. But it's just interesting because everybody sees with their own eyes, like these players having that success, but then for some odd reason, it becomes a mechanics issue and like all this other type of stuff when it gets down to what happens. They got too much time between the end of the season until the draft to try to do all this analytics to where they should probably do it how the NBA does it. They do it a week after the season ends. Because I just feel like they got too much time to sit here and they go to combines, they go to everybody's pro day and to like nitpick and everything, try to like, they sit in these rooms, ask them all these stupid questions. Like I heard one player was being asked how to rap, like the team asked him to rap in an interview at the combine. So it's funky. And we know how funky the NFL is, how they have been for a very long time. So
yeah, no, they're a dirty league.
Yeah. 100%.
I'm mad I still watch it, but it's all right.
Yeah, I mean it's unfortunate. It's by best sport in the world and best athletes in the world, but the league is it's horrible. I hope they kind of start to learn from the NBA a little bit. I think the NBA players got a lot of the power. They're able to kind of just step in, make impacts, and make a lot of changes. They've been able to make a lot of changes in their league as a whole. I think it's been for the better. I think they just have a lot better product than the NFL does right now.
I agree. And what I would say, the reason the NBA and NFL are the difference in that is, I would say the NBA kind of leans into the culture a little more, and also the NFL is much more team based. You are a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, you are a Lions fan, you are a whoever. Like in the NBA, a lot of people are a fan of players.
Sure.
You kind of follow the player around, or you'll kind of, even if you're not really following the player around, like you'll root for the Pistons and still want KD to do well. You'll root for the Pistons and want LeBron to do well. So I think they do a good job of having the players kind of be the face much more than the NFL does, who's kind of want to put the teams forward.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the NBA is doing that intentionally, or it's just because we can see what they look like, and you can see LeBron's face after he dunks on somebody, and you don't even know really what whoever looks like until they take their helmet off.
Right.
So I think that can kind of have an impact on it. But the NBA definitely leans into the culture a little more than the NFL does.
Yeah,
who actively leans back against it.
Yeah. So, yeah. And I mean, even too, like, even coming out like contracts, NBA, like they sign that money guaranteed.
Yep.
Like teams got to bite the bullet if it don't work out. Buying a player out, whatever that kind of looks like.
NFL contracts are made up. You could sign a player right now for $200 million and cut them in the middle of next season because you wanted to.
Yeah.
And get out of paying most of that money.
Yeah.
And in the NBA, players sign a contract today, and then they tear their Achilles the opening day. They're getting that money forever.
Mm-hmm.
The team might break it up over 20 years, but they're gonna get it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just crazy too, because it's like, and obviously it's a boatload of money, but it's always crazy hearing like so and so, like Josh Allen signed for like 268, but only like 120 guaranteed. You know what I mean? It's like, cool, but they gonna make them earn it to where we just watch like Joel Embiid, Trae Young, Luka Doncic. They all signed for 200
guaranteed.
They're seeing every penny, unless they retire or something. Like
regardless of performance, injury, anything, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So
it's a different game, different level.
Right.
So you got to respect the NBA Players Association for taking care of that. And that could have to do a lot. That could have to do with just the impact of the players individually. I don't know. I think if you had to replace leagues with a bunch of random people, it's probably going to be harder to replace quality basketball than it would be to replace quality football.
Yeah.
I think you're not going to find the athletes like you will in basketball. They're a little more exceptional, and 7-foot people are a little harder to come by. And, I just think the games would suffer if they each had to go to this secondary amount of people.
Yeah. And then the average for the NFL, just because it's obviously more of a contact sport, it's like 4 to 5 years. A lot of teams know that. You got a lot of guys out the league right now that is kind of surprising. Obviously, a lot of factors go into it, but NFL definitely got some work to do on their side of things. I think they got to do a better job of start, trying to take care of players. And the product's already great. I think they can go to a whole different level. Just get rid of like we talked about earlier, get rid of the taunting. Stop fining players for wearing colored shoes. The little stuff like that, it doesn't make no sense. Like, it's just like, these guys aren't going to a private school. Like they're making your team money. Like, the least you can do is let somebody wear a shoe with a Joker on the side of it. Like, how is that offending anybody? So.
And I agree. And we can wrap it up, but just with things like that is we don't even know what's happening until they find them, and then we hear about it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I wouldn't even have known what the hell he had on his shoe until you find him 50 grand and then ESPN talked about it. So in actuality, you are shining light to this.
Yeah.
Nobody would know unless you said something.
Yeah.
So
they got to loosen them ties up a little bit. That's all it is. So, but yeah. Got anything else for him?
No, sir. I think we're good. I think that was a good one here. And, you know, we're going to be back at it next week with, you know, a little more football topics. You know, talk about, you know, college football a little bit, NFL a little bit, and, you know, kind of just heading into the season here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll be chatting with you soon.
Peace.